right, welcome back everybody. Welcome to Father and Son Gunpla. I hope you've been enjoying our content lately. As promised from last week's video, I wanted to give a general overview for the hobby of Gunpla. Maybe share some tips and tricks about how I got started, beginners' problems, things that I had to naturally learn to overcome and work around. And hopefully this can pique some interest in folks who've wanted to get involved with this hobby, who never have before. Or maybe if you're just starting out, this will give you a good starting off point, some good pointers, so you can avoid making the mistakes that I made early on. And just a general overview of the terminology and the process and the different kinds of model kits you'll see out there on the market and their different levels of involvement. Now, disclaimer, I've been doing this for several years. I've got a lot of equipment. I've got a lot of experience. I've been doing this for a while. So by no means is this an end-all be-all guide. This is not, hey, do this the exact same way I did it or it's not gonna work. This is just what's worked best for me and lessons learned over time. So I hope you guys will enjoy. I hope you'll like, share, and subscribe, and tell other folks about this content. And check back every week. We're doing at least one new video a week. That's the schedule we've been operating on. It's been working out pretty well. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get started. This is gonna be a solo video, I think, just for me. Buddy might pop in here in a little while. But in the meantime, sit back, relax, enjoy yourselves, and hope you learned something. Thank you. So what we're going to be doing today, guys, first off, I'm going to show you the different kinds, types, sizes of model kits in the box. We'll show them to you out of the box close to the end of the video. But for starters, today what I'm going to do after I showcase some of this stuff, I'm actually going to do a full build of an entry-level RX-78, and that'll give you guys some perspective on how to do it from the get-go. The entry grade model is the lowest in terms of difficulty model that you're going to come across. Because of that, they're the least expensive model kit that you can find out there. They usually range between $8 and $15 depending on where you get it. But the one that we've chosen to do today is the granddaddy, right? The original Gundam. This is an entry grade kit here. You can see on the box here, that is an entry grade, so that is appropriate for kids. It says 8+. My son has built several of these entry grade models almost by himself. You don't exactly need nippers or snips, whatever terminology you prefer, to work with these entry grade kits. The parts usually pop right off the runners, but yeah, so it's pretty easy for kids to get involved with. These are the kits that I had him starting with. So that is an entry grade model. And taking a step higher, we move into the high grade kits, which are a good bit larger than our entry grade kits here, just for some size comparison. And your high grade models, now the high grade models can range anywhere from this size box, maybe even much smaller than this one. This one's got a lot more pieces. It's part of this Battlelog set. So a lot more pieces than a normal high grade kit. It's a little heavier, but there are some huge high grade kits. There's a Penelope kit, which is just a humongous box that looks like a master grade box, but it's a high grade, okay? So here are those two next to each other, right? And then as we move up in terms of difficulty and size and price, and by the way, these are priced usually anywhere between 20 and, well, you can see them go as high as $100 in some cases, but most of the ones you'll find on the market are between 20, 30, 40 bucks. So not gonna wreck the bank, okay? Now, next step up is the master grade, right? So this is an RX-93 master grade kit, which we're going to be doing very soon on the channel. You can see these aren't open. We're going to be doing these in the coming weeks. The master grade kits, as the name implies, are kits that require a certain proficiency and experience level to tackle. I do not recommend jumping right into the gate on a master grade kit. That's what I did several years back, and I regretted it because I wish I would have known some things that I know now. So there's pitfall tip number one. Okay, don't try to build above your skill level jumping right into the water, because you're gonna have a bad time, right? So the master grade kits, much larger, much more detailed than your high grade kits, right? These kits are premium kits. They range anywhere from, $30 to $200. It all depends on what you're going for in terms of exclusivity or rarity. Special edition kits. These Verka kits are special models, specially designed, right? So you're going to get a lot more gimmicks. You're going to get a lot more parts. You're going to get a lot more things that you as a builder have to do and deal with. These master grade parts typically have quadruple the amount of work that goes into them as opposed to the high grade kits. And I'd say that's a good standard. It quadruples each time you move up a step. These master grade kits are always usually very impressive. Most of the time they don't disappoint. These are the kind of standard kits that I build for my hobby purposes. For the purposes of building with Buddy, we usually stick to high grade stuff unless we're feeling adventurous and we want to tackle one of these if he's helping me out. But yeah, so then you move up from the master grade. I got to make some room for this one. I don't think the whole thing will fit on the camera. You move up from the master grade into the perfect grade, which, I mean, this thing doesn't even fit on this table. This is a good sized table. This thing is like a suitcase, okay? These boxes are humongous because they come with everything. A perfect grade kit, as the name implies, is the standard. This is Bandai's, love and attention. A lot of care is put into these when they are designed and made for that purpose. These typically start out at a price point of around $200. You can get some of the older RX-78s for, I've seen them as low as $120, but creeping up in scope. This one, for instance, was about $230, okay? So, and that was on sale. So these boxes are humongous. They take up a lot of space. Held on to this one to hold some spare parts, because this girl right here came with a lot of spare parts. Anyway, the perfect grade kits are the pinnacle of Gunpla, as folks like to say. They contain all the parts and gimmicks and specialty items, moving parts, light up kits. Some of them have actual metal parts on the inner frames, and they're just beautiful, right? These folks are going to take a long time to build properly. This kit here took about 18 hours from start to finish, making it perfect as I could, to honor the kit and to, so you get what you put in, you paid for, I obviously do not recommend starting with a perfect grade kit unless you've been doing this for probably a year or so and you've kind of learned some lessons. But yeah, so those are the size comparisons for these kits. I'll show you one stacked on the other. It's a perfect grade kit, a master grade kit, a high grade kit, and an entry grade kit. So let's move on to the next part. Okay, so time to talk tools of the trade, okay? I love this hobby because of how accessible it is. You don't have to have a bunch of tools and equipment. Really all you need to start out is a pair of nippers or snips, which I'll show you in just a second. But you can get it as advanced as you want. Some folks spend dozens of hours painting and detailing and doing custom work and even custom molding certain pieces and parts to really add some flair to their builds. They enter them in competitions, they win lots of money, they gain international fame right in the community. But all you need to start out is a pair of nippers. So for starters, this is a build box, right? This is not an endorsement for Craftsman, but this is one of the better ones that I've found. We learned early on when we started in this hobby that we were going to need somewhere to put all the pieces during the builds because they were going everywhere. When we first started, we would just use the box to contain all the pieces, and as we were cutting them out, we would build the pieces that we needed for each part. Now, you can do it that way. Tip number 2 here is organize your stuff, right? The better organized you are during a build, the better time you're gonna have, and the easier it's gonna be to keep track of everything. Because some of these kits, some of these high grade kits, and even the master and perfect grades, they have little tiny pieces, which you will lose. I have dropped pieces on the floor, and we've looked for hours for them because they've gone under the carpet or at the edge of the floor, so somewhere you can't see them. Some of the parts might be clear or translucent, so they're impossible to see. We've been on the floor with flashlights looking around before we found them. Anyway, this is a build box, so, and I've obviously decorated mine with some stickers here, but I love this box because what I've done here is I've individually labeled each of these boxes that pulls out, and this is the great thing about it. These boxes are made for tools and small parts and screws and stuff, so it's perfect, right? I've labeled each of these with a corresponding letter for the runners and pieces that I'm going to be working with and cutting out. That is the best way to keep everything organized. You don't lose anything. These are pretty deep. You know, these are, I don't know, 4 inches deep, so they keep track of everything really well. Now, as I got more involved, especially with the higher level master grade and perfect grade kits, I realized I needed more than one of these, and I needed a box that was going to hold some of my bigger parts. Some of these kits you build are going to have long pieces and weird shaped pieces that are too big to fit in those little containers there. So I went ahead and got another build box, right? This box has much bigger containers in them, right? I think these are what, 5-6 inches long, same depth, a little wider, but these are great, right? When I'm not using these for master grade or perfect grade parts, I use them for tools and other spare parts. I've cleaned these out for you guys today, so they're all nice and shiny and new. And aside from build boxes, right, I also have a crafting, spare parts art box, if you will. So in this box, there's a lot of spare parts in here. If you guys look at all the spare parts, you'll see how many kits we've built over time. But I love this box. It holds all my paints really well. These containers are much smaller, right? Probably 1 inch or 2 deep, 3 inches long, 2.5 inches wide. These hold all my small parts and my paint. Keep my paint brushes in here. Other spare parts, spare panel lining markers. But one of these kits is going to be essential for you moving forward because you need a box that you don't have to operate out of, that you can put spare parts, because you do this long enough, you're going to generate a ton of spare parts, okay, or optional parts, right? I like this one because it's like a tackle box, right? It flips up like this. You can see all my, and this is nowhere near all of my spare parts. I have another bin that I keep just spare parts in, but this is where all the spare parts and decals and water slides go, right? This has saved me so much time and effort and headache. So like I said, tip number 2, be organized. Get your stuff in order so that when you're building, you're not looking for pieces and you're not looking around for where they're at. You know where they are because you put them in the right spot, and all your tools and stuff are organized. Okay, so I'm going to go over some of the tools that I use during my builds, okay? First and foremost, like I said, when you're starting in this hobby, all you really need is a good set of nippers or snips, right? Now these are Steady brand, And you're gonna find guys out there who say, oh, you need God hand nippers or this brand or that brand. You know what? I got these at a local hobby shop for about $8, and they have been fantastic. They have never given me any problems. They are razor sharp. I follow the one cut method. I'll tell you about that here in a little bit. I've also got another set here, which is more angular, right? To get into those hard to reach spots. Sometimes parts coming off of runners, you'll have to kind of bend and maneuver around. So I have another pair. They're a little firmer, so they're more precise. I can exercise a lot more precision over them. So you've got your nippers here, right? Now in this build box, I've got some other tools of the trade here I'll show you. Get these on a mat so you can see everything. So, and I love this box because it holds all my tools, right? So I don't always recommend a hard file, but sometimes you need it. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you just want to be prepared, right? These needle nose tweezers, right? I have used for countless kits. They were $3 or $4, and you know what? They apply decals so effortlessly. You can use standard tweezers for decals if you want to, but you're gonna see as you do more complex builds and kits, you're gonna need those really tiny fine points and not something that's gonna grab and stick onto the decal. That's why these needle nose tweezers are highly recommended. I use them in every single build that I do. This is a pin vise, right? It's essentially a little manual screwdriver for precision holes. I've got lots of different size bits for this. This one is actually outfitted with a bit that is the almost exact size for master grade holes that need to be drilled in certain bits of the armor. You don't have to do that. Don't worry about that. That's just a headache to go down. But yeah, pin vise, that's great because you're not using a drill. You're not using something like a handheld drill bit. That's going to break and shatter pieces. Some of these pieces are very delicate plastic pieces, so a pin vise is perfect for getting in those small places, making small little adjustments to things. Okay, so next is a number 11 X-Acto knife. So this is what I use when I absolutely need to trim away a part from a piece or a nub that's stubborn with precision, and I don't want to risk damaging it with the nippers. And it's not really ready to file yet because it's a very small, delicate piece. That's why we operate on these cutting boards, okay? Because I can sit here and cut pieces, and these self-healing cutting boards, you can't really hurt them, okay? Also, got an assortment of very small screwdrivers here. You should not run into the need for screwdrivers unless you're talking about certain master grade kits or perfect grade kits that require you to unscrew parts for the LED kits or something. But this is a perfect size screwdriver. I've used it in several of my perfect grade builds, and yeah, I've just got various screwdrivers here. Now this was actually a spare piece from my perfect strike build. It is a complete spare piece. It has no other use. So I use this to roll and smooth decals, right? It's got this perfect little conical tip here that I use for rolling and smoothing decals out. Really great to have handy. It's nice for Bandai to give us a spare part that we can use. Let's see. And on this side, we've got some softer tools. Okay, those are the hard tools on the right, softer tools on the left. So this is a panel lining marker. So I don't always advocate for panel lining kits, but ever since I started doing it, I've been addicted to it because it just makes them pop and makes them look really nice and neat and makes the parts stand out like they're intended. And actually Bandai's one-step method that they recommend is panel lining and top coating. So these markers last forever. I've done this one, used this one with like 10 builds. I've talked to some folks who've used a single marker on like 100 models. So I've got a very fine tip Sharpie here. This is more for making more permanent marks. The panel lining marker will wipe off unless it gets really dry sometimes, which is good because you just want it in the where the panels separate. So I'll use these very fine tip Sharpies if I need to, or to mark something to make holes later with the pin vise. Sanders are essential, okay? I have used the predecessor to this sander here, which I just retired last week during our last video, lasted me for about 40 bills, okay? It's got, what, 8 different, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different coarseness settings here, if you will. Different surfaces with different levels of grit. So depending on what I'm using, I'll probably start with the 1 and 2 and then end up on the 3 just to get it nice and soft. You generally don't need much more than that, but sanders are an essential. Also got some Q-tips and a spare paintbrush in here. The Q-tips are good for just cleaning up the edges of panel lines. I'll use a little bit of acetone or some rubbing alcohol if there's some really stubborn panel line markings that are excess that I need to get off before I do any kind of clear coating. So there are those. So tip number 3, I think, would just be to have the right tools on hand for the right job. You don't have to have everything. I recommend at minimum a pair of nippers and a nice sanding block, just to make everything pretty and even, make sure it fits well so you're not breaking things or ruining pieces because you didn't want to take the time to sand them properly or cut them out properly. So that's tip number 3. Moving on. Okay, next are alligator clips or clamps, whatever you want to call them. So I've actually got some magnetic ones coming in the mail today that I was hoping to have ready. I guess by the end of the filming of this video, I'll have them ready to show you. But these are essentially little alligator clips or clamps that are attached to the end of these wood skewers, and they fit into this little pegboard, right? I've got a lot of these, but I only use enough for what I'm working with. So these clamps will clip onto the ends of pieces, usually inside frame somewhere that you're not painting or putting top coat on, and it holds them midair so they can dry. I always use these clamps to grab pieces while I'm painting them because I can turn them 360 degrees all the way around and I don't get paint all over my hands and I don't touch the model and smear paint and screw stuff up. There are some models that require a very delicate level of precision with painting if you choose to do so. So these are a must-have for painting. If you're not painting your kits and doing top coating stuff yet, I'd say, you know, don't waste your money on this stuff. I think this was like $6, so it's not a must-have, but very helpful when painting and top coating. And speaking of painting, you know, I requisitioned this large table and turned it into my craft workbench, if you will. So tip number 4 is have a dedicated place where you do this at. For the longest time, Buddy and I would build models on the dining room table or the kitchen counter, and it's just not the place for it. You lose pieces, stuff gets disorganized. If you're married, your wife might get angry at you for leaving model pieces out everywhere when you know, everyone else is trying to do other stuff. I've got a bunch of kids, so it's not always the best having loose model pieces laying around with little ones around because they will mess with them. They will. Buddy was always really good at that. Not so much my other two. They like to run away with things. Anyway, so have a space to do what you're doing. You know, having a cutting mat is not a necessity. It is something that I choose to have, but it's good to have a mat here because if I spill some paint, or as you can see, I've had to clean this one. It's gotten painted on a few times or clear coat, top coat on several times where the shiny parts are. It's best to have a nice surface, flat surface to do this on, and to have room. You need to make enough room for the kit you're building. The perfect grade builds that I do, even using this whole table, which extends out about 2 foot off camera that way, 2 foot in either direction. It's a big table. It's basically a dining room table. Was not big enough to hold all of my perfect grade pieces. So you need to have a good dedicated space to work in. That's my next tip. Okay, so as promised, we are going to walk through an entry-level kit build. I chose to do the granddaddy of all mobile suits, right? The RX-78, right? This is a fantastic entry grade kit because it looks beautiful on a shelf if you're wanting to display it, but also it's easy to do for kids, right? And you'll see on here, this one says, no tools required, no paint required, no stickers, right? So this kit is bare bones, right? All you have to do is snap the pieces out, put them together. If you can follow the instructions, you're good as gold. There's typically not many runners in here to work with. I'll explain what that means here soon. But, you know, like this one says, it's got a wide range of movement for easy posing. That's what you're gonna get when you're done with this build. So we're gonna walk through this step by step from unboxing to the finished product. I'm gonna show you the different levels of care and detail that I put into all of my kits, regardless of whether they're entry grade or perfect grade. You don't have to follow me exactly like I said. I'm gonna show you the basics, walk you through it, and we'll go from there. So I hope you enjoy. All right, let's open her up and be very careful as we're doing so. Put it back in there. So in these boxes, what you're gonna find 100% of the time, if you're interested to know, you're here so you must be, you're going to find a bunch of runner sheets of plastic enclosed in plastic bags. You're also gonna find an instruction manual, which typically, not this one, because this one was made for for kids in America to build, but you're not always going to find instruction kits with English on them. You're going to have a bunch of Japanese, okay? So tip number 5 is if you're starting from scratch on these and you don't speak or read Japanese, use your phone to download an app that will translate it. This isn't an endorsement, but the top app that I'm aware of is Google Translate. It will actually let you use your camera real time to translate Japanese text into English text. It is a godsend. I use it in a lot of my builds because, like I said, I don't read Japanese. And most of the time these manuals do a pretty good job of showing you enough detail and breaking it down simply enough to where you don't have to read anything. They have big X's on no-nos to do and check marks on good things to do. And some of them are color coded. This one definitely is. This entry grade kit has a lot of color on here. Some of these high grade kits and master grade kits are completely in black and white, which they are on the inside no matter what. But just make sure you're keeping track of your parts, okay? Because tip number 6 is look at the instructions carefully, okay? This thing is going to lay out, these instruction manuals are going to lay out exactly what to do and what not to do. They tell you exactly how to do it, right? They show you the runners that are the runners of plastic that are in each box. They show you how they're labeled, A1, A2, A3, etc. And they're going to have little pieces on here that you don't need to mess with because they're not included in that kit. Maybe Bandai printed them to be used for a separate kit. They're gonna have X's. This one doesn't. They're gonna have X's over the pieces that you are not supposed to use. So while you're cutting your models out and while you're putting them together, if you have some spare parts, make sure you go and check the instruction manual, the first page on the parts list, and make sure that part's even meant to go on that kit. If it is, you gotta go back and backtrack and do some troubleshooting. If it's not, that's great. Put it in your spare parts bin, use it for another kit, or amass it like I have. But these instruction manuals tell you exactly how to do it. This is pretty standard for an entry grade. You've only got about 5 or 6 pages of instructions. This one has 4. The first and final pages are usually in color, and the last page usually details gimmicks and stuff, but this walks you all the way through the build, right? It breaks it down into parts. So we see unit number 1 is the head, tells you exactly how to build the head piece. Number 2 is the body, etc., right? Goes on and on, breaks it down for you completely all the way to the final assembly. And then usually on the back of these instruction manuals or the last page, it will show you about little gimmicks or how to apply the weapons or how to attach certain armor or certain optional pieces or put them on a stand, right? So very important to hang on to these. I've kept every instruction manual I've ever opened out of a box for these. I have a stack in my closet about yay thick. That's just in case something happens. You know, I've had kits fall off of shelves before. I've had to figure out how to put certain parts back together. So rule number 6 is keep track of your stuff after your build. Your spare parts and your instruction manuals can come in handy later. I'll tell you something. I broke a piece on a perfect grade kit, and thank goodness I went back and checked my spare parts because I had a spare part. It's almost like Bandai knew people were going to be breaking this specific part because the instructions are confusing on it. So they give you a spare one. Thank goodness, because I took it apart, put the spare part in, put it back together, and now it's beautiful, mounted up on my shelf. So number 6 is keep track of your stuff, right? Keep your instruction manuals and your spare parts in a place. If you have the room for it, just put them in the box they came in. If not, if you're low on space like me, just put them in your build box or put them in your spare parts box. All right, so we're gonna get started. I'm gonna get these parts out of this runner, and I'm gonna walk you through that step by step. All right, so we're gonna zoom in a little bit here. There we go. So these plastic bags, like I said, they contain your plastic runners. Now, there are different materials that are included on these runners. Talk about that in a minute. There's different materials that these runners can be made out of. I'm pretty sure all of these are the same though. Yeah. I know that I also forgot to discuss the scale sizes. I'm going to do that post-editing. So anyway, when you open this box up and get your runners out of the packaging, right, they are usually color separated pretty well. Some runners are just one color. Some runners are multiple colors. It all depends. So you got to keep track of your stuff. Because like in this one, the A1 and the A2 runner are on the same sheet. So, but these pieces are pretty distinct enough to where that won't matter. We got an A1, an A2, an A3, which I'm assuming is just that star piece for the shield, an A4 runner, right? A B1, whoops, a B1, and a B2 runner, and a B3 and a B4 runner. Now, it doesn't really make a difference the order you cut these out. I thought when I bought my first kit several years ago that, you know, maybe the first part you were supposed to build would be on the first runner, you know, alphabetically. Some of these pieces that you build are gonna have, you know, parts from an A1 runner, parts from a B3 runner, parts from a P runner, you know. These entry grade kits also don't have any plastic cap pieces for the joints. So those, you know, it makes building a little easier, but, you know, over time, the master grade kits and the high grade kits, you know, they use those plastic cap pieces. They maintain the flexibility and the joint integrity of the kit. But this one is a pretty standard model. It's pretty hollow. As you'll see, the entry grade kits are pretty hollow. They don't have like an inner, a set of inner mechanics or an inner frame. As you go up in complexity, you're gonna have different frame types on the inside. The one kit that I did not discuss earlier is a real grade kit. So a real grade kit is a newer kit. It's a very detailed 1/144 scale. So it's the same dimensions as a high grade, but it's they're usually more detailed than most master grades. I have a bunch of real grade kits that I built. I just didn't save any of their boxes, so I didn't have a size comparison for that for you. But we will talk about real grade kits post edit. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go step by step here, and we're gonna start doing part separation for these parts and get them off the runners. So typically before I start any build, usually I'm gonna take, if it's a smaller kit, I'm gonna go ahead and take the bins out that I'm gonna need to use. Now, because we have A1, A2, A3, A4, B1, B2, B3, B4, typically that would mean I got 8 bins out. But because these are so well color coded, and to minimize the space that I'm using here, or sorry, maximize the space that I'm using here, I'm just gonna stick to a couple of bins because, I mean, these are very well color coded and they're pretty distinct pieces. There's not really any small pieces on here, like this piece looks exactly like this piece, but they're completely different. They're for different things. These are pretty standard. So without further ado, we're gonna start cutting some pieces, doing part separation. Okay, so I'm also going to keep most of this video real time. I'll speed it up as I need to, but let me get this centered right. Okay. So when you are cutting your pieces out, I'm going to show you exactly how to do this, okay? So on your runner, there are individual pieces, right? So when I told you earlier I used the one cut method, that just means I'm getting these nippers as close to the edge here where the part meets the runner. And again, you don't have to use nippers for these entry grade kits. They pop right off. I'll show you that in just a second. But this is a tutorial, so I get the nippers as close to the edge of the part to cut them off the runner sheet, okay? Once I've got the part free, put it in the bin. Some of these, well, these entry grade kits, you don't need nippers because you can pretty much wiggle these out and hopefully you don't end up breaking them. But all you need to really do is use some hand tension, finger tension there to get these parts out. I'm gonna use nippers so this goes a little faster. Anyway, there are some folks that will tell you, and this is Bandai's suggested method also, that you need to do a 2-cut method. And a 2-cut method, I just feel like is very time consuming and it's sloppy. That I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. Once we get done with these A1 pieces. Okay, so a 2-cut method, which like I said is what Bandai recommends. They recommend that you cut way away from the part off the runner and way away from the part off the runner, and then you're left with this, and then you cut again and you cut again, right? It wastes time, and then you have these little nub plastic pieces everywhere. They go everywhere. It's not very fun. Let me get these back right where they go. Anyway, I use a 1-cut method. If you have sharp enough nippers, that is what I recommend you do. Just take your time, don't rush through it. That is definitely step number, what are we on? 7 now. Don't rush it, okay? If you rush through these kits, you're gonna have a bad time because not paying attention, you're gonna do what I did in the beginning and accidentally cut certain pieces that you weren't supposed to cut, or you're gonna mismatch some pieces together, and sometimes that can ruin a kit. I mean, it really can. Let's see. I've had situations where I ordered a bunch of kits all at once and I was just so eager to get them built. And you know, I was trying to do one after another and I wasn't taking my time, okay? And because of that, like I said, I cut parts that were not supposed to be cut, and I ruined the kit, okay? It is not easy to find replacement parts for kits. Sometimes you have to buy the kit all over again, which I've had to do before. It's not a fun experience. We're gonna finish up with this A1 and 2 runner here. And then we will move on to cleaning up the parts and putting them together. I just wanted to show you guys how this works long form so that you have a solid understanding of what you're doing. Take your time. It's not a race. You're not trying to do it as fast as you can. You want to get as far up close to that part before you clip it. If you're unsure about a part, refer to the instruction manual. It will tell you, hey, don't cut that part. That will be important later. That little tiny piece, do not cut that because it will be important later. Right? Just like that. You see this little chin piece? I could have easily cut that off because it looks like it's a remnant of the plastic there, but it's not. It is part of the chin, and you need it, so don't lose it. This kind of piece especially, you see how this zigzaggy kind of piece is very specific about what it wants cut. Got to get right up in there. Oh, and it flew off on us. That happens too. I typically don't cut way up here unless I'm making videos. So I'm gonna put all these together and we will know that this is the A1 and A2. Now to keep track of that, if I've got weirdly labeled runners, like, you know, if I have A, B, C, D, and then I have like a D2, D3, D4, whatever, I cut these pieces off the runner with the labels and I just put them in the bin. And I typically do that for all the colors that are involved in that so that I know, hey, this actually belongs here. So we know that we've got gray, blue, yellow, and red so in that bin. Okay, moving on here to the second runner. So see, I've been taking my time, going deliberately slow, and we're still making pretty good time. I assume this is going to be a longer video because there's not going to be a lot of time-lapse footage taken. But that's good. It gives me time to impart some, I don't know if you want to call it wisdom, some tips and pointers, and talk through things with you. Like I said, if you're new at this hobby or you haven't gotten into it yet, but it intrigues you, there are tons and tons of resources available online. YouTube is your best friend. It's one reason we got started into this hobby the way we did, because of YouTube. You know, there's a ton of resources and material available on YouTube, which sounds kind of meta to be saying that, especially if you're watching this on YouTube, right? Buddy and I have been doing this for several years. I actually picked up this hobby in my youth, and back then, you know, in the 90s, it was impossible to find these kits. I had a neighbor that lived next door to me. Well, neighbors lived next door to me, and they were, the father was an American, and he had a Japanese bride that he met while he was in Japan, and they fell in love and had a bunch of babies. And so growing up next door to them, I remember the first time I went into the boys. They were boys about 2 years apart. They were mine and my brother's age. I remember going into their room and it was covered floor to ceiling in Pokemon and Gundam model kits, right? So they had Pokemon posters and toys and plushies and beanie babies. If anybody watching this remembers what a beanie baby is. Just floor to ceiling, just everywhere. And I had never seen anything like that before. And he said, you know, yeah, I thought they were toys. And he told me, no, those are models. I built those with my dad. Me and my brother built them with my dad. And I was hooked from then on out. And I begged my parents to buy me one. And they said, you know, hey, we talked to the mom next door, and you know, she said, you can't really get these in America. She said, the reason we have them is because my mother and father live in Japan, and there you can buy those model kits like in the corner stores. You can buy them anywhere. Like she said, kids do them. It's so pervasive in the culture, you know, they're everywhere. She said, what we can do is we can ask my mom and dad to send some extra ones when they do another order. And sure enough, I think it was on my 8th birthday, I got an RX-78 Gundam model. And I fell in love with it. I wanted to do it all by myself, you know. I didn't want anybody to help me. Because I thought I was going to be embarrassed, you know, and I had too much pride about me to have the neighbor kids translate the instructions. So I kind of muscled my way through it. And I tell you what, I broke some pieces and I messed some stuff up. But you know what? When that model was done, I was so proud of myself, because it was the first thing I'd ever built like that with my hands. And so I started building model kits left and right after that. I begged them to send me all kinds of stuff. Zoids, if anybody remembers Zoids. I built all the Zoids model kits. I had 5 or 6 Gundam kits. It was just, I fell in love with it. Anyway, so fast forward several years later, you know, I go into the military, and the neighbor kids have moved away, so I didn't really have access to get this stuff anymore. But I'd gone into the military, and I came back home from my first deployment to realize that my parents had thrown out or sold all of the stuff in my room, including those model kits, which I really hadn't messed with since I was younger, because like I said, I didn't think you could get them in America. Lo and behold, I learned later that the market had really changed, and that you could buy these model kits in hobby shops. And so, you know, over the next few years, I didn't really pay much attention to it. I was in a very specialized military unit, I guess you could say. Didn't have a lot of access to the outside world. I didn't really have time for hobbies and stuff. But, you know, getting older, beginning a new career, having kids, this piqued my interest. And my son saw these model kits in the window of a local hobby shop, and he freaked out, and he wanted to know what they were. And so I said, you know what? We're going to get one of these, and we're going to try our hand at it again, because it's been, you know, 15, 20 years since I've messed with them. And since then, folks, we've been hooked. We have been hooked. Buddy is, he's 6, he'll be 7 this year. And we've been doing these since he was 4 together. And, you know, I've done a lot of builds independently. But for the most part, he helps me out. He likes to be my little helper. He likes to sit here and watch and learn. And he's gotten really good at these. I mean, he can, you know, my 6-year-old can do high-grade kits pretty much by himself. You know, I mean, if I don't really trust him with the nippers all the time, but if I'm watching him, I let him cut them out himself. I've been very proud of him, because I know it stimulates his brain and his critical thinking and his fine motor skills. And, you know, I tell folks he's going to be an architect or an engineer or something one day, just because of how well he does these model kits and how curious he is about them. Anyway, that's just my personal journey. we had a little extra time here cutting out these pieces, but we're almost done. And I actually might have Buddy help me out during the build of some of this. But as you can see, that didn't take long at all. This portion of this video is about 7 minutes long, and I think we only spent about 5 minutes on the first part. So you got a little history lesson there, and you got to see how you cut these pieces out, right? Now, I'm going to tell you about these runners here in just 1 second. Okay, so what to do with leftover runners, right? This kit came with 4 sheets of this runner plastic, and they're small, you know, they fit in that box. A perfect grade kit will come with about 35 or 40 runners, and they're all about 12 by 18 inches. They're huge, right? If not bigger. You're gonna have a ton of plastic left over. Some folks save these, but I'll tell you, my tip number 8, right? Number 8 is hang on to all of your runners in the box until you are done putting your kit together, and know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you have gotten all of the pieces you need off those runners. Because I'll tell you folks, there have been times where I have not done that in the very beginning, where I cut all the pieces out, and in an attempt to save some space or time, you know, whatever, I will take these runners and I'll throw them right in the trash, or I'll put them in the trash can next to the work desk, and then I've forgotten about it, or, you know, and I've gotten almost to the end of the build and realized, oh crap, I needed a very tiny specific part, and I've gone back and I've said, okay, there it is. There's the tiny little piece that we needed was hiding in here, blended in with the color, and I wasn't paying attention, you know. And all of these pieces, right, are numbered. So I think this was the B1 and 2 runner, right? So over here, this would be B1 runner, part number 1, part number 2, part number 3, etc. When you transition over here to the B2 runner, did they start over? I don't think they start over. It looks like it starts with, what, 6, 7, 8, 9, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Anyway, I recommend tip number 8, keep your runners in the box until you are done with the build and you are sure that there are no pieces outstanding. So some people keep these runners anyway. Some folks, if you get really advanced into it, you can melt this stuff down and make your own custom pieces with molds and stuff. That's really advanced. Even I don't do that. Maybe one day, because I certainly have enough spare runners to do it. But we're gonna move on to constructing. So stick around. Okay, so we've got our handy dandy instruction manual here. Now, before I put anything together, and this goes for most kits. Now the entry kits are, you know, a little easier. Plastic's a little softer. They're not in the runners as hard as they need to be. I will take all these pieces out of their respective bins, and one by one I will clean these off by filing them or sanding them. Because you can see, even though we've clipped this really close, there's still a little, you know, a little imperfection here. So I'll typically just go over this a few times and wipe it away. And then with some water, if you've scuffed it or anything, or some paint, you can fix that. But with this being an entry level kit, I think these are gonna be a little more forgiving. There's a few nub marks on here. Let's see. But all in all, I think this one's gonna be pretty nice. See, and these little ones here, that's what paint will really fix if you want to get into the painting. Some of these pieces you have to sand, just like right here. You don't have to do this, but if you want that ball joint to fit in there perfectly, rounding this out so it has ease of motion, right, is essential. There's some little imperfections here. Now, I'm obviously not taking the care and detail that I would with this kit as I would like a master grade kit. But I make sure that I take my time, right? I look them over carefully. That way I don't have to do this a second time. I look all these over. This one's a little roughed up. Yeah. I look them over really carefully to make sure I'm not missing anything. And it also helps me get more familiar with my parts, right? So as you go through the build, you'll be looking at your instructions and you'll say, oh man, I know what this part looks like. I just had it in my hands when I was sanding. It's a lot better when you're more familiar with your parts list. Any of these pieces that'll focus, any of these pieces that have, you know, that are very flat, you want to make sure that they are flat. If they're round, you want to keep them round. So don't sand the round parts too much, and make sure your flat pieces are flat so they fit snugly inside the other pieces. I'm just going to look these over. I think these will be fine. If I come across any pieces that are really bad, I'll touch them up as we go so we're not wasting a ton of footage time here. But step number 9, I guess, is clean your pieces up, okay? There's gonna be pieces and parts that have a lot of like loose plastic clinging off of them. Just make them nice and level, nice and sharp. That way they fit exactly how they're supposed to and everybody's happy. There we go. So without further ado, we're gonna go into the build. Alrighty. So let's see about here. So we're gonna open up our instruction manual here. And first off, we're gonna read the general instructions. We're gonna say, okay, make sure there's nothing crazy we need to know about before we begin. So choking hazard, got it. Pay attention to sharp parts and edges, got it. We made sure that the runner list was good to go. There's no unused pieces, everything's good. Says the runner symbols in the instruction manual indicate the runner is divided with the perforated lines. So yeah, so it does show us how they're separated. Intricate processing may create small differences in the parts, yada yada. It says assemble, so you find the part, match it up with the runner list, you take it out, and then you build it. It's that simple. It says refer to the illustrations and pay attention to parts and their orientation and direction during assembly. Some parts may be difficult to distinguish from one another. Check the part numbers and follow the assembly order. So true, so true. Refer to your Bible here, okay? So something else, when I'm starting a build, typically I'll go ahead and organize the pieces I need for different parts, but just to kind of show you guys how easy it is, we're gonna walk through this the hard way, the long way, right? So we're working on the head, right? So for the head here, this is unit number 1. It says we need part A11, A216, B13. Now I told you, I just sanded all, I just reviewed these parts and cut them out, so I typically know what I'm working with, but we know that A1 and A2 are both in this bucket, right? So I'm gonna look for a piece that looks like a kind of a little collar, sits down on top of something. And I remember just having this one in my hands, and I know from experience, this is a little neck collar piece, right? Or I'm sorry, a head collar piece. And this is actually the eyes for this kit. There's no stickers. These little sharp parts are gonna be the eyes that are yellow that shine through, poke through the white and the red of the armor. So we set that aside, and then we look for A2. Okay, that looks like a head, a face. And I know historically that part is red, right? Because I've done this enough times. So it says I take this piece, I put it down here, and if it looks like it makes sense and fits, and it does, that looks very snugly fit, it looks perfect. I can zoom in even farther here, right? Get it to focus, right? That looks great. That looks like it's meant to go there. Another tip here, if it looks like it doesn't go there, it doesn't fit, make sure it does first, Make sure it's not a mirror image of a part that doesn't go there. But don't force it. Don't force it, guys. You're gonna break parts and pieces like I've done in the past, and you're really gonna have a bad time, okay? So let's see, so the B1, 3, B1, 1. Okay, so I know this is our B1 and 2 here. So this looks like this is this football helmet looking thing, right? I know that that's the headpiece. It matches the picture here. And then the B1 piece, that looks like a little mouth cover. And I know that's usually the smallest part of an entry or high grade kit. If I can get her out here. So take your time, okay? Make sure it's oriented right, like the manual tells you. The mouth fits on just like so. And then it says we slide this whole piece under here, and it looks like these are meant to go together, like they fit. And voila. Now, A215. Okay, it looks like a small part, and it is. Little red part. B12, we know this is B1, and that looks like some fins or some horns here. Okay, it says we take this first and slide it on here like so. Make sure it's facing the right direction. And this slides in and locks in just like that, right? And then this piece goes right onto here. And we are done with the head. It's all done. That's all you have to do. Okay, on to step 2. So that's the body unit, right? Another thing about the instructions, they tell you when stuff is supposed to fit, how it's supposed to fit or sound, right? This one makes a little sound noise. It says fit with an exclamation point. That's because a lot of these parts will do a very satisfying click or snap or fit, fit noise when they do join together properly. That's how you know you got it right. Let's see, we need A12 and A26. This bigger piece, whoop, looks a lot like that with the fins that go on the front of the chest there. That looks correct. And then A2 I know is also in this bin here. Okay, now I look at these and I say, okay, does this look like these fit together? Oh yeah, these absolutely look like they fit together, all right? You hear that little click? And then A217 is a piece with a ball joint on the inside of it. So we want to make sure, okay, this is telling us put that ball joint in the top hole, not the bottom one, right? So we're going to put it in the top hole like so. And it fits snugly in there, right? Unless I really yank that out, it's not going to go anywhere, okay? As you can see, these kits are pretty much hollow. Anyway, moving on. So we're going to do A15, which is this piece, right? Goes down right on top of this one. And you want to look, okay? So there's two little holes here that looks like, and a void that looks like this shape. And there's two little pegs here, and they go right together like that, right? And then separate from that, gonna take this piece here, right? A little trunk looking piece, and a piece with two pegs on it. Which if we're looking through here, we find the right one, because they're similar, okay? Like if you're not paying attention, you might think that these pieces look pretty similar from a distance. They both have ball joints or ball, connectors on them, but they're different, right? So you want to make sure to grab the right part, because it could land you in some hot water, right? So this one, make sure you check the orientation. So it says to have the smaller pieces facing up, and this piece just fits right into here, just like this. Okay, looks good. And then it shows us that we tilt this back, put it in this bottom hole here, Once it's in there, we orient it like that, and looky there. Looks like a Gundam torso, okay? That didn't take long at all. Now we look down here for the neck connector piece, which will almost always, if it's included, be a double ball joint. And we're gonna look here for how this needs to look, how it needs to be oriented. So it's showing me that it needs to go in like this. These are symmetrical, so it doesn't matter. We're gonna slide that, pop that right down there. And then the two arm pieces, or the shoulder joint connectors, are the ones that I just showed you. Right, we make sure those are oriented with this flat part facing up, and they fit, and they fit, right? Then we look at the A2 for the backpack. Two holes here. All right, so now that hopefully you've gotten the hang of this, Buddy and I are gonna continue this build just to show you real time how simple it is. You wanna say hey, Buddy?
Hey.
Okay. All right.
Daddy, what is this?
Right here. We're here. We're down here at the bottom.
That goes there.
Very good. Let's turn the page.
Let's put the head on.
Hang on. Let's do it when it tells us to.
Hey.
Here, slide over.
See, build the armies.
Alright, I'm gonna let you put everything together. I'm just gonna give you the parts, okay?
Yeah, because everything's not that big. These stomach crackers are good.
They are.
Like you.
You're silly. Alright, so
Okay.
it's telling us, hang on.
I think it's telling us to put that together.
Yeah, hang on. Let me set them out. Because it tells us to do it twice, okay? So if you have parts that look, hang on, buddy. If you have parts that look like they go together, there's two sets of them, you probably need to do it twice. So go ahead and put those together, pal.
Oh, okay. Oh. Oh, this. Did that go there?
Flip that around, you dingling.
I'm trying to.
Let me check something real quick. See it exactly like I said. Look at this. I was so busy talking, I forgot a piece on one of my runners. Even me, someone who's been doing this a long time. Okay, so keep your runners. That's one of the rules. All right, bud. So you see how these look going down into here?
No.
Okay.
Hey, let me do it.
I'm gonna do one. You do the other one. We'll do it together.
Where's the?
Sorry, right there. See how this goes on here? The flat part goes in the back. Look at what you're doing. Flip it. Wait, hold yours up like this so I can see.
Yeah,
Okay,
do it.
the flat part goes, yep, just like that. And then this piece, the open part, goes up. See how this is, yep, slides right on the inside there. Good, set the arms here. Good.
Let me connect it.
Didn't you already?
I need to connect mine. Okay, looks like this one don't even connect. Okay, I know what these are for.
Mm-hmm.
They're for the slide these in like, boing, you put them on.
Yep, that's right.
But you gotta put them on this. Do you slide them in or something?
Other side, the other side. Ding ding.
Skilly.
All right. Good. Yep.
Okay, do I put them together?
Do the other one. Silly. And then put the hands on the bottom.
Eight. Oh.
All right, so we're gonna cut to a time lapse, so this goes a little faster for you guys at home. Very good. Okay, so see, we maybe have been recording truly since we started. I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes. Whoops. That's just how nice these are. These entry grade kit pieces are very forgiving. You can kind of force them, they will snap into place, but you know, you've got an out of the box completed mobile suit. All right, now we're gonna finish her off with some weapons here. You ready, buddy?
It's not that hard.
That's right.
So, display pieces for the gun, just
Looks
four
like,
pieces.
looks like, yep.
Let's go ahead and put it together. We don't need the instructions, Daddy.
Maybe not. But I figured out why these look goofy. Because you forgot to put these arm pieces on, you ding-a-ling.
Oh. And which does this go on? And then after this, can you get dressed on something else? Just put something else on so you can come play with us outside today.
Bubba. All right, looks good to me. All right, buddy, you want to put his gun in his hand? Let's do this one so we can put the shield right there. Yeah, so these entry grade kits don't have hands that separate, but most of your high grade, if not all of your high grade and master grade kits are going to have hands with two parts. So you're going to get a hand piece and then a back of the palm flat piece, and they will have different hand options that connect, and you're going to have to actually take the back of the hand off to slide the gun in, or the beam saber, whatever, and then close it back. But these are fine too. All right, I'm going to put his shield on his arm here, pal.
Yeah.
Yep, just snap it on here, on that peg.
Not pay is a hole.
Well, yeah.
Bye-bye now.
See? So we've got a completed kit here. We spent less than 30 minutes on the whole thing. And it looks pretty nice. You know, there's no decals or stickers on here, so the colors are matched really well. 4 colors in this kit. Next, we're going to talk about detailing. So that's panel lining and top coating. If there's anything to really panel line here, I don't think so, but we're gonna put some top coat on her so she looks nice. Okay, so now we are done with our instruction manual, right? It gives you your options as to what you can do with your kit. So different options. So this one says that he can either have his shield on this peg hole here, or he can carry it in his hand with this little handhold here. So we're going to keep them right just like that for now. We're done with these bins. We check our bins again. Tip number 9 now. Check your work. Make sure you have used all of the intended pieces for your kit. And if you have, and you're confident that you have, and everything feels like it's in place, nothing looks wonky, you did a good job, right? So now we're going to talk about detailing. All right, so as I said earlier, this would be the point where we would panel line our kit after it's put together, right? This kit though, in particular, is an entry grade kit. It doesn't really have lines to do panel lining on. I mean, if I was gonna be really detailed, I could do some here on the vents on the side of the head. But honestly, there's not really any use for panel lining lines that aren't gonna take. I mean, if you want to, just so I can show you, sometimes I'll do these inner cap pieces for the legs like so, just so they pop a little bit against that white armor. And you don't have to be crazy with this, just minimal pressure. Now a high grade kit, I'll show you one in just a second, the one that we just finished, or a master grade kit is absolutely going to have some opportunities to do some panel lining, and if you do it right, it looks really, really good. It looks really cool because it actually makes it look like how the armor is intended to look, instead of just a big piece of plastic with lines on it. Right. And then we're going to get the elbows here. Just minimally. Make sure to be symmetrical in your applications. Now, typically, before I do any panel lining or detailing, I will take a kit completely apart to its base components so that I get all the pieces and parts properly. With this one, because it's an entry grade kit, it's already put together pretty well. I'm just gonna do top coating how it is to give you guys a better understanding what that is, okay? And to give you a comparison with the panel lining, this is also a 1/144th scale. This is a high grade kit. This is the Astaroth. You see the panel lining here actually makes the parts on this kit really pop and stand out, right? Especially on the shoulder here, on these waist fins, on the legs, right? And then I top coat, clear coat over the panel lines once they're dry to make them permanent, okay? But this kit here, there's not really any lines like that anywhere for that, so we're just gonna go ahead and clear. Okay, and I realized far too late that my phone had stopped recording, so apologies there. We just finished putting top coat on. I was just remarking on how you want to take your time and go over these bigger surfaces and just take your time. Don't let it gunk up, and it'll look beautiful. You know, when you're done, you'll have a really beautiful finished product. Okay, so I just wanted to take some time to show you some size comparisons like I said earlier in the video. I just wanted to show the current model we just built up against a high grade model, and this is a high grade Strike Freedom Gundam, and yeah, these are entry grade and high grade models are the exact same scale and size, and compared against a master grade model of the same Gundam build, so it's the same model, different grade, you get a lot more features, a lot more gimmicks, a lot more detail, and then you go one step further even into the perfect grade, which this is the perfect grade Strike Freedom. This is the pinnacle of what Gunpla is. It's got all the features, all the gimmicks, all the extra parts, accessories, all the detail, a very intricately woven interframe or inner frame. Weapons are very nice. Everything is articulated. Everything is very posable. So I just wanted to show you guys the differences in the sizes of the kits once they're actually built side by side. All right, guys, if you've made it this far, I truly commend your patience and your tenacity. This has been the longest video we've recorded thus far, almost. It'll be the longest edited video that we've made. But I really wanted to go in depth and answer any questions and give as many tips as possible to make your beginning stage into this hobby something enjoyable and something with as few setbacks as possible. I've been there before. I've had bad situations that I caused because I didn't know what I was doing and was, flying by the seat of my pants hoping that things would go well, and they didn't. So I've had to rebuy kits before. Okay, I don't want you to have to do that. I've broken pieces on certain kits. I have a certain kit which I'm not gonna say it because we might be rebuilding it here in the future, but I completely broke the arm off that kit, the arm joint, and I wasn't really willing to pay the money it would cost to get that kit again. The kit was very frustrating anyway. It was a real grade kit. Those real grade kits are so fragile, so delicate. So before doing any real grade kits, I would get a couple other builds under your belt. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed, hope you learned something. I'm going to be publishing a shortened version of this video with just the real bare essentials, maybe just the tips, just the pointers, and just the bare bones stuff for folks who don't want to sit through an hour and a half long video. But in the meantime, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate the support. Please like, share, and subscribe so that Buddy and I can keep doing this, keep educating folks, keep doing awesome stuff like this. This is what we're passionate about. We really enjoy it. And the view counts have been ticking up on some of these videos, so I like seeing that, obviously. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. If you have any questions or comments about anything, please shoot me a message. I'd love to have a discussion with you, especially if you're wanting to get involved with your kids in this hobby. I'm always looking to connect to more like-minded folks out there, and maybe you can teach me something. So in the meantime, this has been Father and Son Gunpla. Take care.